So this is a section that's not explicit on the CLEP exam, but you'll see a lot of questions that ask what these things are. So these are some terms that are good to know. It says in the beginning that there's a small percentage of things like this. But in the chronological part of the reading, it's not, it's kind of separate. So I wanted to include this at the end. Just wanted to make sure you know what a couple of terms are and just give some examples. So verse and stanza. Verse is like a line in a poem, and a stanza is kind of like the paragraph. I mean, just one line would be the verse, and the stanzas are the group of verses there. So a slant rhyme is when only the stressed syllables of the consonants match. It's also called a half rhyme or an imperfect rhyme, and you might see some examples of that. So here we've got the idea here, an example here with Emily Dickinson. So check out these underlined words here. It purchases the soul and it stops at all. So we've got the consonant rhyme there, but it's not an absolute rhyme. Free verse doesn't follow any regular meter, kind of imitates conversation. We've seen this here with Walt Whitman, with this noiseless patient spider. We've seen it in some of his other work, but it's just free verse. It's just laid out, and you can see that example there. A sonnet, we've seen some people that write in the sonnet form. These are 14 lines. It's got a particular format here. An iambic pentameter, which is a meter in poetry consisting of an unrhymed line with 5 feet, each foot having an unaccented syllable and an accented one. So with those in particular, there's 2 types of main sonnets, which you may not have to know for the exam, but these are laid out here. So basically, one sonnet is made up of 2 major sections, some more information on here, and you can see the rhyme scheme on the bottom there for that. And then the Shakespearean sonnet is made up, it's a different format here, and that has a different rhyme scheme in the bottom as well. So an epic poem, we use the word epic a couple of times, but it's just a long narrative poem about heroic deeds of a person or a nation. Well, it's, in our case, it's not going to really be about a person or a nation, but it may be about a person's experience in relation to a country or something. And that whole idea, a long narrative poem about somebody's experiences. A metaphor, take a look at some of the literary terms here. Figure of speech refers to something as by mentioning another. All the world's a stage. And then we've got an extended metaphor that compares 2 things, an extended metaphor that compares 2 things alike that are not alike. Is called a conceit, okay? So that's one thing to look at there, this idea of conceit, the idea of an extended metaphor. A simile, you can remember that because it's a comparison using like or as. Is cold as the Arctic in here. An allusion, a reference to a person, place, or event. You are Superman, that's heavy for me. What an Eden that place was. So a lot of the time we have biblical allusions, which is very common in literature. Personification is giving human characteristics to a thing or an abstraction. The grass crept up on me, or now I have to mow it. No, it's the idea of the grass crept up, personifying that there. Motif, this is a word that we've run across. It's a recurring subject or theme in art, a literary, visual, or musical. In this sense, obviously, it's going to be for literature. Alliteration is a repetition of similar sounds. The rubber baby buggy bumpers. She sells seashells by the seashore. How much wood could woodchuck chuck, woodchuck could chuck wood. A lot of different, languages have these alliterations that people like to repeat. Hyperbole is an exaggeration. I have a ton of things to do. You actually don't have a ton, but it's just an exaggeration, an overstatement on that, it's sometimes called. Onomatopoeia, with the formation of words or sounds like the object to which they refer. A chickadee is like the bird chickadee, because it sounds like a chickadee, dee, dee, dee. The word buzz, or cuckoo, like a cuckoo bird, has the sound of they would make like a cuckoo clock. An oxymoron is a seemingly self-contradictory effect is produced. Jumbo shrimp, dark light. You could see some examples there. Apostrophe is when a writer detaches her himself from reality and talks to an imaginary character. This happens a lot in Shakespeare, and you may see some examples of that. A paradox is a self-contradictory statement, one that might express a truth. Your enemy's friend is your enemy. Synecdoche, when a part is taken for the whole or vice versa. Let's have a glass. Ask for her hand in marriage. In this sense here, let's have a glass is more like actually like a metonym because you're using the glass for to replace for the drink itself. But these are examples of that. So satire, we've seen some things with satire here, so quickly let's take a look at that. It's a literary mode that uses humor, ridicule, and irony to expose or criticize or denounce evil, stupidity, and the vices of people, institutions, or beliefs. So that's a long term there, but something that's satirical points that out. So it uses irony, parody, hyperbole, understatement, sarcasm, wit, inversion, and other literary techniques. So it really takes them all under its wing there. And just to quickly look at a couple of these. Irony, like World War I was the war to end all wars. Parody, an exaggerated imitation of a writer, like Don Quixote is a parody of the chivalric novels. It's a longer thing. Understatement, presenting something smaller or less than important, describing a gunshot wound as a scratch, for example. Sarcasm, this is very common in our society. Where's the flood if someone wears pants that are too short? People that are always being sarcastic. So as I pointed out before, novella is a longer than a short story, but shorter than a novel. A couple terms here, just quickly. So character, plot, space, time, language, narration, and theme are words you probably already know that are set into how a short story or a novel would develop. And time and space, language, narration, and the narrator is usually first or third person. So the characters are going to be the protagonist, is like the main character is pushed along, and the opposing forces would be seen in the antagonist. And then as we move along with the plot here, it's got different phases of development. I think I mentioned this quickly, but you've got an exposition, a development, a plot, and a denouement, which is French for untying, which is sometimes another word used for the resolution. And this is a general plot and the stages of development in a regular short story or novel. And just to finish up here, the idea of a narration, I'm sure we've seen this before, but we've got first person, we could see this in To Kill a Mockingbird, or third person, as we could see in Catch-22, or a lot of the other works that we've seen. A lot of the confessional poets would be first person. A lot of the subjective times first person. Some of the other works, the more objective stuff might be in third person there. So these are just some terms that you might want to review to help you when you take the CLEP exam.